Women's suffrage, the struggle for equality. What is women's suffrage? According to Britannica, women's suffrage is the right of women by law to vote in national or local elections. Women's suffrage was the movement of allowing the women the rights to vote and participate in elections. It began around the 19th century, where women decided they deserved more freedom and independence from the social norms. This movement led to the 19th Amendment, the right allowing women to vote. The women's suffrage movement has a huge impact on American history. It gave women the chance to break away from the housewife stereotype and gain more individuality. In 1920, the 19th Amendment was passed, allowing women to have a say in political decisions by allowing them to vote. This also made it so there was a significant amount more people participating in elections. This gave women more of a voice in society and allowed them to have more of a decision in educational, diplomatic, and tens of other major decisions in our world. This also led to many people to start numerous other movements for rights. Background information. Before the 1920s, women were expected to present a certain role in society. They had to care for their household and were in charge of feeding their whole family and making sure the husband and the children were taken care of. They were not allowed to vote in elections. They were even refused education in some cases. All property rights belonged to the husband of the family. Some of the earliest public women's rights activists were Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They founded the National Women's Suffrage Association in 1869. Anthony was a huge advocate for married women's property rights and suffrage rights. Key moments in the movement were the 1920s, because it really changed the perception of women. Women entered the flapper era, where they felt a sudden independence and freedom within themselves. They were allowed to let go of society expectations and make decisions for themselves. This led to them making unique fashion choices and cutting their hair, allowing themselves to embrace a different side. During the Civil War times, women developed a bigger role rather than just caring for their household. Many women were given the opportunity to become employed. Dozens upon thousands of women volunteered to become nurses in the war because they also wanted to help serve their country. And some women became licensed doctors as well. Women were given an even bigger role in World War I. They were able to serve as messengers, truck drivers, and many other positions. 11,272 women joined the U.S. Navy for the duration of the war. Important figures and organizations was the National Women's Suffrage Association, founded by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, prioritizing women's rights. The National American Women's Suffrage Association was also a combination of two rival groups, and they put both of their strategies together, fighting for the constitutional amendment and also using state campaigns to eventually result in the 19th Amendment. The legacy of the movement on America. Passed by Congress June 4, 1919, and ratified on August 18, 1920, the 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote. This led women to consider the other rights that could be fought for. It was just the beginning of many feminist movements to come and inspired many women to fight for their rights. One of the other movements was the Equal Pay Act. It made it illegal for work facilities to pay women less for doing the same job as a man. And here are some images. Some major text and speeches. This quote from Susan B. Anthony: "No self-respecting woman should wish or work for the success of a party who ignores her sex." One of the key speeches of the women's rights movement was Elizabeth Cady Stanton's "The Solitude of Self." In this speech, she emphasizes how every individual has a life of their own, and the only person they can truly rely on is yourself. She explains how much independence a woman has, and it is not necessary to rely on a man. The women's suffrage movement was only one of the steps to women's rights to equality, and it made so many women realize that activism can lead to major changes. And it really steered away from like the stereotypes from as women. The movement was successful as the 19th Amendment went through, allowing women to vote. This was looked upon for decades, inspiring women to protest for their rights. This changed America, allowing women to participate in politics, slowly leading to full gender equality. Today, women's rights are still evolving, and a big part of it is due to the legacy of the suffrage movement. And this is my bibliography.